This is exactly why I follow Aidan and why I am incredibly honored to count myself among his mutuals. This is a really fascinating interpretation of the lore that honestly makes the Genesis flood myth so much worse. It reinforces the idea that the people slaughtered in the flood were defined as evil by no choice of their own, and that their nature could have been corrected by no action of their own. It was a condition they inherited through their ancestry, over which they exerted no control. According to this interpretation, the flood was the result of a series of deliberate actions by a purportedly omniscient God that created angels with the capacity to fall, knowing in advance that some of them would fall, meaning ultimately that not even immediate proximity to God in the presence of paradise was enough to prevent them from rebelling. It created angels with evil in their blood, and then it created humans susceptible to the divine power of those fallen angels, who were capable of physically interbreeding with them, knowing in advance that some of those fallen angels would contaminate the lineage of humanity with the evil that those angels had been created with. And it did all of this knowing in advance that its final solution, once all of humanity save for one family had been contaminated, was to slaughter all of the descendants of the humans it had created to be contaminated with the evil it had created by fallen angels it had created, along with almost every other living being on the planet. Every step of this scenario points to one of two conclusions: either a God so incompetent that despite its purported omniscience, it somehow inadvertently created evil and all of the circumstances for it to flourish, or one so malevolent that it deliberately created evil and all of the circumstances for it to flourish.
Right now, who genuinely believe they are ushering in the apocalypse, that things like climate change are God's will. You cannot reason with that. They will kill us all. They want to kill us all. They think God wants them to kill us all so that they can cleanse the planet for the second coming of Christ. If you think these people will not just murder everyone, if you think that they will stop, you are wrong.
You know, I used to believe that society advanced one funeral at a time, that once all the boomers were dead, life in the U.S. would genuinely improve for everybody. And that even though there'll be times where we take steps backwards, over the long course of history, we will always keep moving forward. But the more I learn about white supremacy, the less I believe that. After segregation ended, thousands of public pools were filled with concrete to prevent black people from using them. In fact, countless public amenities all across the U.S. were destroyed just so black people couldn't use them. And it's no coincidence that things have gotten so much worse since they saw Obama get elected. They elected Trump as a reaction to that, and then stormed the Capitol when he didn't get a second term. You know, during the Civil Rights Movement, a lot of focus in the news was on the fact that white people thought the Civil Rights Movement was moving too fast. Both liberals and conservatives were concerned about the pace of civil rights. I truly believe that conservatives would rather see this country burn to the ground than to see things continue to move forward in any sort of progressive way. I think it's entirely possible that the kids watching this on TikTok right now could outlive America, because white supremacists would rather they themselves suffer than see one single black person benefit. This is why healthcare is not considered a right in the United States. It's why food, water, and shelter are not considered human rights. It reminds me a lot of a child deciding to break a toy instead of being forced to share it.
Well, I think it was actually electing a black president that did it. And no, I don't think we're going to survive this. Not intact as we were or as we thought we would be, but in something very, very different that has yet to kind of taken like any sort of shape. It's going to get significantly worse before it gets better. But this is about a country that never dealt with the internalized racism, right? The structural racism, not just in our government, but in our way of life, but in our subconscious, right? And the kind of strain of American fascism that began in the 1930s, when they began to kind of do this intentionally to make us more religious and turn the July 4th into this quasi-religious holiday, it elevated the president into this near deity status while preying on the racism and actually kind of like insidiously like enabling it. And so to kind of give them a black president for 8 years quite literally broke them, because we basically made them pray to a black god, and their subconscious will never accept that again. So we're taking our ball and going home. You made us pray to a black president. We will give you the worst white man, and we will tear the country down so that it never happens again.